A crowded diner, a pair of desperate men, and a single moment that should have shattered her. But for one waitress, terror was just another Tuesday. What the armed robbers didn't see was the steel in her spine. What the other customers didn't see was the secret she was protecting. But one man saw it all. A reclusive billionaire. With a reputation for ruthlessness, he witnessed her extraordinary calm. And what he chose to do next wasn't just an act of kindness. It was a test, an offer, and the beginning of a story so incredible it would captivate the entire world. Stay with us to uncover the truth behind the viral headline. The bell above the door of the Corner Booth Diner chimed a cheerful, tinkling lie. Outside the city of Boston roared a symphony of screeching tires, distant sirens, and the impatient murmur of a million lives colliding. Inside, however, the diner was an oasis of manufactured nostalgia. The scent of stale coffee, frying bacon and sugar hung thick in the air. Red vinyl booths cracked, and gleaming under the fluorescent lights offered sanctuary to a motley crew of patrons. In the farthest booth, almost swallowed by the shadows, sat Alistair Finch. To the casual observer, he was just another man in a well-tailored but deliberately understated charcoal suit. His salt and pepper hair was perfectly coiffed, his face a mask of detached neutrality. No one would guess that the Patek Philippe watch on his wrist was worth more than the entire diner building included. Alistair Finch didn't just own buildings, he owned skylines. Finch Enterprises was a titan of private equity and real estate development, a modern empire built on Alistair's uncanny ability to see value where others saw none, and his legendary ruthlessness in acquiring it. He hated these lunches. He came to this diner once a month, a strange ritual he'd started after his wife Isabella passed away. She had loved places like this, places with character, as she'd called it. To Alistair, they were just inefficient businesses with questionable hygiene. But here he sat, staring at a plate of congealed eggs, feeling the gnawing emptiness that no amount of success could fill. He was bored. Bored with the sycophants who managed his billions, with the predictable flattery, with the sterile, air-conditioned world he had built for himself. He scanned the diner, his gaze sweeping over the patrons with the cold assessment of a predator. A student hunched over a textbook, a couple arguing in hushed tones, a truck driver devouring a burger. All of them predictable. All of them dull. His eyes landed on the waitress. Her name was Maya Rodriguez, and her world was a universe away from Alistair's. Her uniform, a pale blue dress with a white apron, was impeccably clean, but frayed at the seams, a testament to countless washings. She moved with an economy of motion that spoke of long hours and aching feet. There were faint lavender smudges of exhaustion under her eyes, but her expression was one of unwavering focus. She refilled a coffee cup here, scribbled an order there, her mind, a whirlwind of calculations. Mrs. Gable's toast needs to be extra crispy. The man in booth 3 is allergic to onions. I have 47 minutes until my shift ends. I need to pick up Ava's prescription. Rent is due Friday. The transmission on the car is making that sound again. Ava. Her 9-year-old sister was the sun around which Maya's universe revolved. A sun that was tragically threatening to burn out. Cystic fibrosis. The diagnosis had been a wrecking ball to their lives 2 years ago, forcing Maya to drop out of her nursing program, just 1 semester shy of graduation. Every dollar she earned, every extra shift she took, went toward the mounting medical bills, the specialized treatments, the hope that they could buy Ava just a little more time, a little more air in her struggling lungs. That's why she was here balancing plates and smiling at strangers when she should have been in a hospital, wearing scrubs and saving lives. The irony was a bitter pill she swallowed every single day. Alistair watched her, intrigued by a flicker of something he couldn't quite name. It wasn't just efficiency. It was a kind of quiet dignity, a grace under the pressure of a thankless job. She didn't offer the fake, bubbly enthusiasm of other servers. Her smile, when it appeared, was small and genuine, reserved for the elderly woman in booth 2 or the little boy who dropped his fork. He saw her gently calming the arguing couple, her voice low and steady, her presence a small pocket of peace in their private turmoil. He was about to dismiss it, to return to his cold eggs and colder thoughts, when the bell on the door chimed again. This time it wasn't cheerful. It was violent. 2 men burst in. They were not large or imposing, but they moved with the frantic, jerky energy of cornered animals. One wore a black ski mask, the other a stained grey hoodie pulled low over his face. The one in the mask held a small black pistol, and he waved it with a hand that trembled visibly. "Nobody move!" His voice was a raw, panicked bark. "Empty the register now." The diner froze. The comforting symphony of clattering cutlery and quiet conversation shattered into a terrifying silence, punctuated only by a woman's sharp, indrawn breath. The student dropped his textbook. The truck driver's hands went up slowly. Fear, thick and acidic, flooded the room. The second man, the one in the hoodie, vaulted over the counter, his movements clumsy. He shoved the diner's owner, a portly, balding man named Sal, against the milkshake machine. The cash, all of it. Maya had been on her way to the kitchen with a stack of dirty plates. She was trapped in the main dining area, halfway between the counter and the booths. The man with the gun was less than 10 feet away from her. His eyes, wide and wild behind the mask, darted around the room, finally locking on her. "You on the floor now," he screamed, the gun wavering in her direction. Alistair Finch's body tensed. His mind, accustomed to assessing risk and planning 3 moves ahead, went into overdrive. 2 assailants, 1 firearm, likely a 9mm amateur. Shaky hands. Primary motivation is cash, not violence. High probability of a stray shot due to panic. He subtly slid his hand toward his phone, ready to activate the silent emergency alert hardwired to his private security firm. But then he stopped. He watched Maya. She did not cry. She did not scream. She did not drop to the floor. Slowly, deliberately, she placed the stack of plates on the nearest empty table. The clink of ceramic on formica was unnaturally loud in the silent room. Then she raised her hands, palms open in a gesture of non-aggression. "Okay," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. It was the same calm, steady voice she had used with the arguing couple. "It's okay. Everyone just stay calm. He's getting the money." Her eyes met the gunman's. She wasn't challenging him. She was communicating, de-escalating. Her gaze was not one of fear, but of an almost clinical assessment mixed with a strange sort of empathy. She seemed to see not a monster, but a terrified man making a terrible mistake. An elderly woman in a nearby booth began to sob, her frail body shaking. The gunman's head whipped toward the sound, his panic escalating. "Shut her up! Shut her up, or I swear I'll—" "Mom!" Maya said, her voice cutting through his panic without raising its volume. She never took her eyes off the gunman, but she directed her words to the woman. "Brenda, look at me. It's Maya. Just breathe." Deep breaths. "It's going to be over in a minute. Just breathe with me." It was an act of impossible courage. She was managing the entire room. She was managing the robber. At the counter, the man in the hoodie had stuffed a canvas bag with cash and was yanking it free. "Let's go. Let's go," he hissed. The gunman backed toward the door, his weapon still sweeping across the terrified patrons. His eyes met Maya's one last time. For a fraction of a second, something flickered across them, confusion, maybe even a sliver of shame, before he turned and fled with his partner into the chaos of the city. The diner erupted. Sobs turned into wails. People rushed to lock the door. Sal, the owner, sank onto a stool, breathing heavily. The air crackled with adrenaline and relief. And through it all, Maya moved. She went first to Brenda, kneeling by her booth, speaking in soft, reassuring tones. She got her a glass of water. She checked on the student, on the arguing couple, on everyone. She was a beacon of calm in the aftermath of the storm. Alistair Finch sat in his shadowy booth, his hand no longer near his phone. He hadn't moved a muscle. He had watched the entire event unfold, not as a potential victim, but as a spectator, at the most riveting performance he had ever witnessed. He had seen CEOs crumble under less pressure during a hostile takeover. He had seen politicians stammer and sweat with a single tough question. Yet this waitress earning minimum wage had faced a gun with more composure and tactical grace than any of them. She hadn't been brave in the reckless way of a movie hero. She had been smart. She had controlled the emotional temperature of the room, preventing panic from tipping the robbers into violence. It was an astonishing display of what he valued most, grace under fire. True grit. The police arrived, their sirens, a belated announcement of safety. Statements were taken. The chaos slowly subsided into a weary, procedural hum. Maya, her face now pale, and the lavender smudges under her eyes more pronounced, finally resumed her duties. She brought the check to Alistair's table. Her hand trembled slightly, now the reaction she had held at bay, finally seeping through. "I'm so sorry about that, sir," she said, her voice a little hoarse. "Your meal is on the house, of course." Alistair looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time. He saw the frayed uniform, the exhaustion, and the unshakable core of steel beneath it all. He took the check. On the small slip of paper, he wrote nothing. Instead, he reached into his wallet and pulled out a stack of $100 bills. He counted out 20 of them. $2,000. He tucked his business card, a stark white rectangle, with nothing but his name and a private number underneath the top bill. He placed the money on the table and stood up. "That wasn't fearlessness," he said, his voice low and raspy. "That was management. Very impressive." Before a stunned Maya could respond, he turned and walked out of the diner, leaving behind a pile of money that could solve her immediate problems, and a small white card that held the power to shatter her world all over again, or rebuild it from the ground up. The shrill wail of police sirens faded into the background, replaced by the low hum of shocked whispers and the clinking of Maya's hands as she mechanically cleared tables. Her mind, however, was still frozen on the booth in the far corner. $2,000. The pile of crisp $100 bills sat on the table like a mirage. Next to it, the business card seemed to burn with a quiet intensity. Alistair Finch. Finch Enterprises. A private phone number. Her first instinct was a tidal wave of relief, so powerful it almost buckled her knees. $2,000. This was more than a tip. It was a lifeline. It was Ava's next round of expensive medication. It was the specialist copay she'd been dreading. It was a month's rent. It was a single glorious breath of air in a life that felt like a constant state of drowning. Her co-worker, a perpetually stressed-out young woman named Beth, gaped at the money. "Maya, who was that guy? Did he just leave you $2,000? I have no idea," Maya stammered, scooping up the money and the card, her hands trembling. She stuffed it deep into her apron pocket, the crinkle of the bills a secret reassurance against her hip. The rest of the shift was a blur. She gave her statement to a tired-looking detective, her voice still steady as she recounted the events. She noticed details others had missed, the slight limp of the man in the hoodie, the brand name Titan on the sole of his worn-out sneaker, a detail she'd seen as he vaulted the counter. She reported it all with the dispassionate clarity of a trained observer, a remnant of her nursing school days. When she finally clocked out, the city lights felt different. The usual sense of oppressive weight was replaced by a fragile, tentative hope. Back in her small second-floor apartment, the air thick with the scent of antiseptic and the gentle whir of Ava's nebulizer, the reality of the day came crashing down. Ava was asleep in her bed, her small chest rising and falling in a rhythm Maya monitored with obsessive care. A worn copy of The Little Prince was open on her bedside table. Looking at her sister's peaceful face, the fear Maya had so expertly suppressed in the diner finally clawed its way up her throat. Her hands shook as she counted the money again on her tiny kitchen table, as if expecting it to have vanished. It was real, but so was the card. Alistair Finch. The name sounded vaguely familiar, like a headline she might have glanced at. She pulled out her battered laptop and typed it into the search bar. The results were staggering. Photos of a stern-faced man in front of soaring glass towers, articles from Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times. The Midas of Manhattan, one headline called him. The corporate raider with the velvet hammer, said another. He was a titan, a predator, a recluse, known for his brutal efficiency, and a portfolio worth tens of billions. He was the man from the corner booth. Why would a man like that give her $2,000? And more importantly, why the card it wasn't charity? Men like Alistair Finch didn't do charity. They made investments. Every action had a calculated return. The money felt like bait. The card felt like the hook. For 3 days the card sat on her kitchen counter, a stark white challenge. She paid for Ava's prescription, paid the rent a week early, and even bought a new top-of-the-line air purifier for her sister's room. The money was a balm, but the card was a splinter in her mind. What did he want? Was this some rich man's perverse game? Was he expecting something else? Her mind, already burdened, churned with suspicion and anxiety. "You should call," Ava said one afternoon, her voice raspy from her treatment. She had found the card while looking for a crayon. "He was nice to you. Maybe he wants to give you more money." Maya looked at her sister's hopeful face. For Ava, the world was still simple. For Maya, it was a minefield of hidden intentions. "It's not that simple, sweetie," she said softly. But what if it was? What if she was letting her own cynicism block a genuine opportunity? She was a nursing student who couldn't afford to finish her degree. She was working a dead-end job. What did she have to lose? Her pride. Pride didn't pay for enzyme replacement therapy. On the 4th day, with a deep breath that did little to calm her racing heart, she dialed the number. She expected a secretary, an automated menu, a gatekeeper. A man's voice answered on the second ring. "Finch." It was him, the same low, raspy voice from the diner. No greeting, just his name. A statement. Maya's throat went dry. "Oh, hello, Mr. Finch. My name is Maya Rodriguez, from the diner, the other day." There was a pause. She could almost feel him assessing her, even over the phone. "I know who you are, Ms. Rodriguez. I've been expecting your call. I was beginning to think my judgment was flawed." "Your judgment? I judged you to be decisive. 4 days is not decisive. It's hesitant." Maya bristled. 4 days is practical. I had to ensure the well-being of my family before considering a cryptic offer from a stranger. Another pause longer this time. She thought she might have heard the faintest trace of a smile in his voice when he finally spoke. Fair enough. Finch Enterprises. 1 Finch Plaza, 88th floor. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Don't be late. The line went dead. No. Would you be interested? No, let me tell you about the opportunity. It was a summons. The next morning, Maya stood before a monolith of black glass and steel that seemed to pierce the clouds. Finch Plaza. She wore her only interview outfit, a simple black skirt, and a white blouse she'd spent an hour ironing. It felt woefully inadequate as men in bespoke suits and women in designer dresses swept past her through the cavernous marble lobby. On the 88th floor, the world went silent. The air was cool and smelled of expensive leather and faintly of lemon. A receptionist with a headset and an unnervingly perfect smile directed her to a set of frosted glass doors. Alistair Finch's office was less an office and more a kingdom. One entire wall was a floor-to-ceiling window offering a godlike view of the city below. The furniture was sparse and modern, the desk a single massive slab of polished mahogany. Alistair stood by the window, his back to her, looking down at the world he owned. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said, without turning. Punctual. A good sign. He turned to face her. In the harsh morning light, he looked older, his face a road map of stress and sleepless nights. "Please sit." She sat on the edge of a leather chair that was probably worth more than her car. "I don't waste time, Ms. Rodriguez, so I'll be direct." He began taking his seat behind the desk. "The $2,000 was a thank you for the entertainment." "The entertainment?" Maya asked, her voice tight. "Watching you handle that situation was the most interesting thing I've seen all year. You didn't panic. You assessed. You managed the threat, you managed the victims, you controlled the environment. You have a rare and valuable skill, the ability to remain absolutely clear-headed under extreme duress. I can teach someone financial modeling. I can't teach them that." He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "I have an opening in my company. It's a new position. Special Projects Coordinator, reporting directly to me." Maya was floored. "Special Projects. Coordinator Mr. Finch, with all due respect, I'm a waitress. I have an incomplete nursing degree. I'm not qualified to be a coordinator of anything in a place like this." "Your nursing background is precisely why I'm interested," he countered, steepling his fingers. "You're trained to observe symptoms, make diagnoses, and perform triage under pressure. Business is no different. It's about identifying the illness in a deal, finding the pressure points, and knowing who to save first. Your resume is the single most impressive resume I have seen in the last decade, not for what's on it, but for what isn't failure." He slid a single sheet of paper across the desk. It was an offer letter. The salary printed on it made her vision swim. It was more than she made in 5 years at the diner. Full medical dental vision, a benefits package that could change Ava's life overnight. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Your job will be to handle problems," he explained. "Sensitive problems, a difficult negotiation with a union boss, a community protest at a new construction site, a high-value client on the verge of pulling out. You will be my eyes and ears. You will go into volatile situations and you will bring back stability. You will not use spreadsheets or PowerPoints. You will use the same skills you used in that diner. Observation, de-escalation, management of human emotion." It was insane. It was the most insane, unconventional job offer in history. A billionaire was hiring a waitress to be his personal crisis manager based on a 10-minute robbery. A part of her screamed that this was a mistake, a fantasy. But another deeper part of her, the part that had faced down a gunman, the part that fought for her sister's life, every day recognized the truth in his words. He saw her. He didn't see a poor waitress to be pitied. He saw a warrior. There will be one condition, Alistair added, his tone hardening slightly. Absolute loyalty, absolute discretion. What you see and hear in this company stays with you. You will be tested. Many people here will not understand my decision. They will see you as an outsider, an interloper. They will try to make you fail. If you fail, you're gone. No second chances. He stood up, signaling the end of the meeting. I need your answer by the end of the day. Maya stood as well, the offer letter clutched in her hand. Her mind was a tempest. This was a world of sharks, and she was a minnow. But sharks bled like anyone else, and she knew how to handle bleeding. She looked from the offer letter in her hand to the sprawling city outside the window, a city that had always felt alien and hostile. For the first time, it looked like a possibility. You don't need to wait until the end of the day, Mr. Finch, she said, her voice finding that same calm, steady tone from the diner. I accept. Alistair Finch allowed himself the smallest of smiles. Good. Your first test begins Monday. Maya's first day at Finch Enterprises was like being dropped into a foreign country without a map. The 88th floor was a hushed, ethereal realm of quiet ambition. The air itself seemed to hum with the silent, frantic exchange of millions of dollars. Her own office, she had an office, was a glass-walled cube near Alistair's, a clear statement of her new proximity to power. It was also a fishbowl. She felt the eyes on her immediately. They were curious, dismissive, and openly hostile. Whispers followed her to the coffee machine. That's her. The waitress? I heard Finch hired her on a whim. My cousin has an MBA from Wharton and couldn't even get an interview. Her primary tormentor materialized on her second day. His name was Preston Cole, tall, impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her first car, and armed with a smile that never reached his cold blue eyes. Preston was the golden boy of the acquisitions department. He was an Ivy League legacy, a master of the corporate game, and he saw Maya as an insult to everything he had worked for. Maya is it, he said, leaning against her doorframe, not bothering to ask for permission to enter. Preston Cole, I head up the M&A division. Just wanted to welcome you to the team. The word team was laced with sarcasm. Thank you, Preston. Maya said, her tone even. She didn't stand up, forcing him to continue speaking down to her. It was a small, subtle power play she'd learned from dealing with difficult customers. I have to say, he continued, looking around her Spartan office, we're all just fascinated by your unconventional hiring story. Alistair certainly keeps us on our toes. You were a food service professional. I was a waitress, Maya said, meeting his gaze directly. I'm also a very fast learner. Preston chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Well, if you ever need help figuring out the difference between EBITDA and a non-GAAP earning, you just let me know. Wouldn't want you to get overwhelmed. He sauntered off, leaving a trail of smug condescension. Maya ignored him. She spent the first week doing exactly what Alistair had told her to do, observe. She read every file she was given access to, studied the dynamics of the executive meetings she was allowed to sit in on silent in a corner. She watched how people spoke, what they avoided saying, who flinched when certain projects were mentioned. She was mapping the human terrain of the company. Her first test came at the end of the second week. Alistair called her into his office. He didn't look up from his computer. The Sterling Tower project, he said. There's a problem. Maya had read the file. Sterling Tower was a massive 80-story luxury condominium Finch Enterprises was building downtown. The problem was an old brick tenement building, the last holdout on the block, occupied by a dozen rent-controlled tenants, mostly elderly. Finch had offered them generous buyouts, But one woman, a 78-year-old retired schoolteacher named Mrs. Dubois, was refusing to leave. She had lived there for 50 years. Preston Cole had been handling it, and his strategy of increasing pressure and legal threats had only made her more defiant, turning it into a minor media headache. "Preston's approach is failing," Alistair stated. "He sees it as a negotiation. He's trying to find her price. He doesn't understand the problem. You will handle it now. Go down there, talk to her, solve it. You have 48 hours. It was a direct challenge, a public stripping of responsibility from his golden boy. When Maya left Alistair's office, she saw Preston through his own glass wall. He was on the phone, his face red with fury. Maya didn't go to the legal department. She didn't review the buyout offers. She went to the city archives. She spent half a day digging, looking for anything she could find about the tenement about Mrs. Dubois. Then she went to a bakery and bought a small lemon tart. She arrived at the tenement building that afternoon. It was small and worn, but the windows were clean and there were flower boxes on the sills. She knocked on the door of apartment 3B. It was opened by a small woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and a cloud of white hair. She held a book in one hand, her finger marking her place. "If you're from Finch Enterprises, you can turn right around and leave," Mrs. Dubois said, her voice firm. "My name is Maya Rodriguez," Maya said calmly. "I'm not here to give you another offer. I was hoping I could just talk to you for a few minutes. I brought a lemon tart. I read in an old neighborhood newsletter that you won the St. Jude's baking competition with your lemon tart back in '98. I figured a connoisseur would appreciate it." Mrs. Dubois' stern expression faltered, replaced by a flicker of surprise. She looked from Maya's face to the tart in her hands. After a long moment, she sighed and opened the door wider. Well, it would be a shame to let a good tart go to waste. "Come in." Maya's apartment was filled with books and memories. Maya didn't talk about the building or the money. She asked about the photos on the wall. She learned about Mrs. Dubois' late husband, a firefighter. She learned about her years teaching English literature to inner-city kids. She listened. Finally, Mrs. Dubois herself brought it up. "You know why I won't leave, don't you?" "It's not about the money," Maya said quietly. "Of course it's not about the money," the old woman scoffed. "My husband, Robert, he laid every single brick for that fireplace himself. Our son took his first steps on this floor. I planted the rose bush in the community garden downstairs the day he went off to college. This isn't an apartment, Miss Rodriguez. It's my life. That man, Mr. Cole, he doesn't understand. He thinks everything can be bought and sold. He offered to move the fireplace brick by brick. Can you imagine? As if it's the stones that matter." "It's the memory," Maya whispered. "Exactly." Maya leaned forward. "Mrs. Dubois, Finch Enterprises, is a machine. It's not going to stop. That's a reality we can't change. But what if we could save the part that matters? Not the bricks. The memory." Maya pulled a file from her bag. It wasn't a legal document. It was a proposal she had typed up herself. "Sterling Tower is going to have a small public park on the ground floor," Maya explained. "A green space. My proposal is to dedicate it as the Robert Dubois Memorial Garden. We'll move your rose bush to be the centerpiece. We'll install a bronze plaque honoring his service as a city firefighter. And we will establish the Dubois Literacy Fund, a perpetual endowment managed by Finch Enterprises that will donate thousands of books to inner-city schools every year in your name as a former teacher. Your legacy, and his, won't be in a building that's about to be torn down. It will be in a living garden and in the minds of hundreds of children for years to come." Mrs. Dubois stared at her speechless. Tears welled in her sharp eyes. Preston Cole had tried to buy her home. Maya Rodriguez had offered her immortality. The next day, Mrs. Dubois signed the agreement. When Maya presented the solution to Alistair with Preston Cole summoned to the meeting, the silence was deafening. Alistair simply nodded a glint of approval in his eyes. Preston's face was a mask of cold fury and disbelief. He had used a hammer and failed. The waitress had used empathy and succeeded. The balance of power on the 88th floor had just shifted. Maya's success only made her a bigger target. Preston began a subtle campaign of sabotage. Files she needed would go missing. Meeting invitations would arrive late. He would accidentally misrepresent her words in executive briefings. But Maya, accustomed to the chaos of a busy diner, was meticulous. She kept her own copies. She confirmed every meeting. She sent summary emails after every conversation, creating a paper trail that Preston couldn't erase. She was playing chess while he was playing checkers. Her new salary and benefits had transformed her life. Ava was enrolled in a clinical trial with a top pulmonologist. They moved to a larger, brighter apartment in a better neighborhood. For the first time in years, Maya could see a future that wasn't defined by the next medical bill. But the pressure was immense. She lived in constant fear of the one test she would fail, the one problem she couldn't solve, which would send her tumbling back down from this glass tower. Her next major challenge was a volatile union negotiation at a port facility Finch had recently acquired. The local leader, a man named Frank Garrison, was a notoriously tough old-school brawler who had already chewed up and spat out two of Finch's top lawyers. Alistair sent Maya in alone. She met Frank not in a boardroom, but at a dockside tavern he frequented. The place smelled of beer and fried fish. Frank, a bear of a man with hands like cinder blocks, sat with his arms crossed, his expression hostile. Finch sent a girl. He grunted. He getting soft. Maya slid into the booth opposite him. He sent a problem solver, Frank. I read your file. I also read your father's file, and your grandfather's. Your family helped build this union? Frank's eyes narrowed. I know you're worried about automation replacing your men, Maya said. And you're right to be. It will. But my proposal isn't about stopping it. It's about getting ahead of it. Finch Enterprises will fund a state-of-the-art training facility right here on site. We'll retrain every single one of your members to service and manage the new automated systems. Their jobs won't be eliminated. They'll be elevated. Higher skills, higher pay. Your union won't be fighting the future. It will be running it. She saw the same flicker in his eyes she'd seen in Mrs. Dubois'. She wasn't attacking his position. She was honoring his legacy and securing his future. The deal was done within a week. Maya was becoming a legend within the company. The Finch Whisperer, some called her. She was Alistair's secret weapon. But with every victory, Preston Cole's resentment festered, growing into a dangerous obsession. He couldn't beat her on merit. He would have to find another way to destroy her, and as he dug into her past looking for leverage, he had no idea he was unearthing a secret that would connect back to that fateful day in the diner, a secret that would threaten to burn down everything Alistair had built. Preston Cole was a man drowning in resentment. Each of Maya's successes was a personal humiliation, a fresh layer of salt in his wounds. The quiet nods of approval Alistair gave her, the way other executives had started to seek her opinion, it was all a theft of what was rightfully his. He was the one with the pedigree, the education, the killer instinct. She was a charity case, a fluke, and he became obsessed with proving it. If he couldn't outmaneuver her in the present, he would weaponize her past. He hired a private investigator, a discreet but ruthless man named Costello, who typically dug up dirt for hostile takeovers. The instructions were simple. Find something on Maya Rodriguez. Anything. A past crime, A debt, a scandal, a disgruntled ex-boyfriend. Something to prove she was unworthy of the 88th floor. For weeks, Costello found nothing. Maya's life was disappointingly clean. She worked hard, paid her bills sometimes late before Finch, and cared for her sick sister. There were no skeletons. Preston grew impatient, his daily interactions with Maya becoming more strained, his smiles more predatory. "Working hard or hardly working," he'd quip passing her office. "Just focusing on my own work, Preston," she'd reply, without looking up a polite dismissal that infuriated him. Then Costello called. "I've got something," he said, his voice slick with professional satisfaction. "It's not about her directly. It's tangential, but it's messy." Costello had pulled Maya's complete employment history, her financial records, and cross-referenced them with police reports from her neighborhood. He had gone back to the day that had started it all, the robbery at the Corner Booth Diner. The police had made an arrest a month ago. One of the two robbers had been identified and apprehended after using a marked bill from the robbery at a liquor store. His name was Danny Sullivan, a low-level criminal with a history of petty theft and a recent desperate slide into more serious crime. "So what?" Preston snapped. She was the victim. "How does this help me?" "Patience," Costello purred. "I didn't stop with Danny Boy. I pulled his visitor logs from the county jail. He's had one recurring visitor every single week. His older brother." Preston waited, a cold knot tightening in his stomach. He didn't know why, but he felt he was on the precipice of something significant. "The brother's name is Michael Sullivan," Costello continued. "He's a mid-level analyst, works in the risk assessment department for a large downtown firm. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called Finch Enterprises." The line went silent. Preston felt the air leave his lungs. Michael Sullivan, a quiet, forgettable analyst who worked on the 62nd floor. A man Preston barely knew existed. But his brother had held a gun on Maya Rodriguez. "But that's not the best part," Costello said, savoring the moment. "I dug into Michael Sullivan's work log. Guess who he was working under for the last 6 months? Guess which senior executive's projects he was assigned to?" Preston didn't need him to answer. He knew. It was him. Michael Sullivan was one of the dozens of junior analysts who crunched numbers for his acquisition proposals. "I don't see the connection," Preston said, his voice a low growl. But his mind was racing, connecting dots he hadn't even known were there. "Oh, there's a connection," Costello said. 6 weeks before the robbery, Michael Sullivan was flagged by your internal auditors. A small discrepancy in an expense report for the Northwood Logistics deal. You were the supervising exec on that project. The report was kicked up to you. Standard procedure. You signed off on it, clearing him. 2 days later, Michael wired $5,000 to his brother Danny's girlfriend. Looks a lot like you covered for a guy who was skimming, and that guy's brother went on to rob your boss's new favorite employee. It's not a good look, Mr. Cole. Not at all. Preston hung up the phone, his hand trembling. He remembered the Northwood deal. He remembered the flag. It had been a minor issue, a few $1,000s in a multi-million-dollar acquisition. He'd been pushing the deal through on a tight deadline and hadn't wanted any delays or red flags on his record. He'd interviewed Michael Sullivan, who'd seemed pathetic and terrified, babbling about a family emergency. Preston had made a judgment call. He'd buried it signing off on the report to keep the deal moving smoothly and had promptly forgotten all about it. A small act of corner-cutting ambition. But now that small act had metastasized. It tied him, however indirectly, to the very event that had brought Maya into the company. If this came out, Alistair wouldn't see it as a coincidence. He would see it as a catastrophic failure of judgment. A man Preston had covered for had a brother who committed a violent crime that directly involved their company. It was a cancer of liability. His plan to ruin Maya had just backfired in the most spectacular way imaginable. He was the one who was vulnerable. He had to get ahead of it. He had to spin it, or better yet, he had to bury it deeper. He had to ensure no one else made this connection. Meanwhile, Maya was finding her footing, not just as a problem solver, but as a potential leader. Alistair had given her a new, highly sensitive project, vetting a potential non-profit partner for the Finch Foundation, the company's philanthropic arm. It was a project that required deep analysis, not of numbers, but of people and their motivations. The leading candidate was a slick, media-savvy foundation called Future Forward, run by a charismatic CEO. They had a glossy brochure and powerful endorsements. Preston had been championing them for months. Maya, however, felt something was off. Their mission statement was vague, and their financial disclosures, while technically legal, were opaque. She decided to do what she did best, go to the source. She spent a week visiting the community centers Future Forward claimed to support. She spoke to the staff, the volunteers, the people they were supposed to be helping. She found a pattern. The centers were underfunded. The programs described in the brochures were mostly non-existent. Future Forward was a hollow shell, a marketing machine designed to siphon off corporate donation money into massive executive salaries and administrative fees. To confirm her suspicions, she needed access to raw internal financial data that the foundation wouldn't provide willingly. She needed a deep dive of forensic accounting. That kind of analysis fell under the purview of the risk assessment department, specifically under the team managed by Preston Cole. She sent a formal request through the proper channels, requesting the full, unredacted financial workups on Future Forward. As part of her due diligence, she also requested the background files on all the analysts who had worked on the initial positive recommendation for the foundation. On a Tuesday afternoon, an electronic file package arrived in her inbox. It contained the Future Forward analysis and the requested personnel files. She opened the personnel folder first, wanting to understand the team that had given this questionable charity a glowing review. She scrolled through the names, headshots, and brief bios, and then she froze. One face leaped out at her. Michael Sullivan. She wouldn't have recognized his name, but his face, it was strikingly similar to the man in the grey hoodie from the diner, the same weak chin, the same haunted eyes. The police had shown her a photo lineup weeks ago when they'd arrested his brother. The family resemblance was unmistakable. Her blood ran cold. She clicked open his file, and then she saw the other attachment, his work history, his most recent major project, the Northwood Logistics deal, supervising Executive Preston Cole. And there a note from the internal audit, flagged and then cleared by Preston. It was all there, a constellation of facts that suddenly snapped into a terrifying picture. Preston, Michael Sullivan, his criminal brother, the robbery. But what did it mean? Was it just a string of horrible coincidences? Or was it something more sinister? Did Preston know he had to have known? He supervised the man. He cleared him of financial misconduct just before the robbery. And then another darker thought entered her mind. Preston hated her. He was actively trying to sabotage her. Was it possible? Could he have known about the two brothers and somehow used it? It seemed insane, too conspiratorial. But Alistair had hired her to see the patterns others missed, and this was a pattern that screamed danger. She looked at the file, then at the glass wall of her office, toward Preston Cole's distant, powerful corner. He wasn't just a corporate rival anymore. He was a man with a dangerous secret, a secret that began with a desperate criminal in a diner and ended on the 88th floor, and she was the only one who knew it. The discovery hit Maya like a physical blow. She stared at the screen, her heart hammering, as the facts aligned into a damning constellation. Michael Sullivan, the analyst from her own company. His brother, Daniel Sullivan, the man from the diner robbery. And the executive who had buried Michael's financial misconduct just weeks before the crime, Preston Cole. This wasn't a coincidence. It was a rot, a secret that started with Preston's reckless ambition. She knew this explosive connection on its own could be dismissed. She needed to prove a pattern of corruption. Her instincts led her back to the Future Forward Foundation, the sham charity Preston had championed so aggressively. Why was he so invested? Working with a cold fury, she bypassed the glossy brochures and dug into the raw payment data, cross-referencing vendors. Within hours, she found it. The charity's largest payments were going to a boutique PR firm. A quick search of incorporation documents revealed the owner's name: Caroline Vance Preston's girlfriend. He wasn't just pushing a sham charity. He was trying to funnel foundation money into his own pocket. This was the key, undeniable proof of his character. She compiled her findings and requested a meeting with Alistair, CCing Preston. In the boardroom, Preston smirked at her. "Ready for the big presentation? Maya, don't worry, I'll back you up if you get lost." Alistair entered, silencing the room. "Begin," he commanded. Maya's presentation was a clinical execution. She methodically dismantled Future Forward, ending with the slide showing Preston's girlfriend's company as the prime beneficiary. All color drained from Preston's face. "This is a smear campaign," he sputtered. "My personal life is irrelevant." Alistair silenced him with a glacial stare. "Continue, Ms. Rodriguez." "This conflict of interest," Maya said, her voice steady, "is unfortunately not an isolated incident. It's part of a larger pattern of judgment." She clicked to her final slide, showing the faces of the Sullivan brothers beside Preston's. She laid out the timeline, the buried fraud, the wire transfer, the robbery. "I am not suggesting Mr. Cole orchestrated this crime," she stated, locking eyes with Alistair. "I am stating that his ambition led him to ignore a serious ethical breach. This decision brought a direct connection to violent crime inside this company, a liability he has actively concealed while trying to enrich himself. He has become the single greatest risk on the 88th floor." The silence was absolute. Alistair turned to Preston, his voice deceptively soft. "Preston, is there anything in this presentation that is factually inaccurate?" Trapped and exposed, Preston stammered, It's complicated." "No," Alistair said, his voice dropping to a low growl. "It's remarkably simple. Get your things. Security will escort you out. Your career here is over." After the disgraced executive stumbled from the room, Alistair faced Maya, a look of profound respect in his eyes. "You didn't just identify a problem. You brought proof and a solution. The head of the Finch Foundation position is open. The job is yours. It's time we invested in real human potential." The story of Preston Cole's spectacular flameout and Maya Rodriguez's subsequent promotion to president of the Finch Foundation spread through the corporate world like wildfire. But it remained an internal affair, a tale whispered in boardrooms and exclusive clubs. The viral moment, the one that would capture the public's imagination, was yet to come. It came from an unexpected source. Brenda, the elderly woman Maya had calmed during the robbery. Brenda's granddaughter was a budding journalist for an online news outlet. Hearing her grandmother's story about the impossibly calm waitress, the journalist Chloe decided it was a sweet, human interest piece. She started digging. She interviewed Sal, the diner owner, who told her about the mysterious man in the corner and the $2,000 tip. Intrigued, Chloe used her grandmother's description and Sal's memory of the name on the business card. A few searches later, she was staring at a photo of Alistair Finch, the reclusive billionaire. The story had just become infinitely bigger. Chloe's outlet ran with it, Billionaire's enormous tip-to-hero waitress after traumatic robbery. The article got moderate attention, a feel-good story for a day. But Chloe was a good journalist. She wasn't satisfied. She kept digging. She wondered what happened to the waitress. Through a source at City Hall, she found the dedication records for the new park at the base of the Sterling Tower, the Robert Dubois Memorial Garden. She spoke to a delighted Mrs. Dubois, who couldn't stop singing the praises of a brilliant, empathetic woman from Finch Enterprises who had made it all happen. Her name was Maya Rodriguez. The pieces clicked into place in Chloe's mind. The hero waitress was now working for the billionaire. She called the Finch Enterprises press office, expecting a boilerplate, no comment. But her inquiry mentioning Maya Rodriguez by name was flagged and sent directly to the 88th floor. Alistair, recognizing a unique opportunity, did something he never did. He authorized an interview. Not with him, but with Maya. The resulting article, published a week later under the headline, "From Waitress to Vice President, the billionaire who hired the hero of the corner booth diner," was an explosion. It went viral globally. The story was irresistible. It had everything terror heroism, a mysterious billionaire, an unbelievable job offer, a triumph of character over circumstance. Maya, now confident and poised in her new role, handled the media storm with the same grace she had shown in the diner. In the interview, she masterfully shifted the focus. "Mr. Finch's offer was extraordinary," she stated, "but he wasn't rewarding me for being a victim. He recognized a skill set. What I did in that diner de-escalation, managing fear, clear communication under pressure, are the same skills I now use to find and support underfunded community leaders for the foundation. This isn't a fairy tale. It's a testament to the fact that talent and potential are everywhere. You just have to be willing to look for it in unconventional places." The story became an inspiration. Maya Rodriguez became a symbol of hidden potential. Alistair Finch, the ruthless corporate raider, was recast as a visionary who saw value not just in companies, but in people. From her new spacious office overlooking the city, Maya launched her first initiative as president of the Finch Foundation. It was called Project Nightingale, a massive scholarship and support fund for students from low-income backgrounds who had to drop out of nursing and other healthcare programs due to family or financial hardship. Her life was unrecognizable from a few months ago. Ava was thriving her new treatment regimen, working wonders. She was a happy, energetic kid who loved visiting Maya's Sky office. Maya finally had the peace of mind she had fought so hard for. She was no longer just saving her own sister. She had the power and resources to save countless others. One evening, Alistair Finch stopped by her office. He looked at the plans for Project Nightingale spread across her desk. "Impressive," he said, his usual gruffness softened. "You're not just running the foundation, you're remaking it." "You taught me to look for the illness in a system," Maya replied with a small smile. "The system that lets people with the desire and talent to heal others fall through the cracks is sick. I'm just performing a little triage." Alistair looked out the window at the city lights, twinkling below the endless sea of human lives. He had spent his life acquiring things, buildings, companies' wealth. But in hiring Maya Rodriguez, he had made his first and only truly priceless acquisition. He had found someone who could not only manage a crisis, but could build a legacy. The waitress from the corner booth hadn't just changed her own life. She had, in the end, changed his. In the end, this wasn't just a story about a billionaire's generosity or a waitress's luck. It was a story about the incredible, often invisible skills that people forge in the crucible of hardship. Maya Rodriguez's calmness wasn't a superpower. It was a muscle strengthened by years of fighting for her sister's life. Alistair Finch's true genius wasn't just seeing her potential, but understanding that her real-world experience was more valuable than any degree. This story reminds us that the most qualified person for the job might not have the most polished resume, and that true strength is often quietest in the middle of a storm. What do you think was Alistair's hiring decision? A stroke of genius or a reckless gamble? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you were inspired by Maya's incredible journey, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and make sure you subscribe to our channel for more unforgettable true stories. Thank you for watching.